Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. Whether this is your first time joining us or your 70th, we're grateful that you are virtually adventuring with us tonight. My name is Gabe Gunning, and I have the privilege of serving as your host this evening as we whisk you away to the most charming and dramatic corners of the great country of Switzerland with a very special guest. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome on the savviest travel advisor I know and an enthusiastic Swiss traveler. It is my dear colleague, Marta Shakhazizian. Marta, welcome to Monday Night Travel.
Hi, thank you so much, Gabe. I'm so excited to be here with everyone tonight.
We are grateful to have you with us. And Marta, while you are here to talk with us about Switzerland this evening, you are such an avid traveler that I know you actually recently got back from a different trip. Can you share with us where you traveled most recently and what your wow moment of that trip was?
Yes, I just got back from our Best of Germany tour, and oh my gosh, I think the entire city of Berlin was a wow moment for me. I rented one of those scooters and I scootered all around the city. At one point, I actually happened upon the Ritter Sport chocolate flagship shop that was having their opening weekend when I was there. And I got to go there and I got to design my own chocolate bar. And that was a riot. That was so much fun.
Well, I went to Berlin once before to run the Berlin Marathon, and I think I need to run the marathon again. A, as an excuse to go back, and B, to burn all the calories so I can eat about 25 Ritter sports bars when I go visit the flagship store.
You got to
Uh,
do it. You got to do it.
Viewers, if you have not tried a Ritter sports bar, they do sell them in the US for much more expensive than in Germany, but it is worth it.
Yes.
All right. Well, Marta, you are not here to talk about Germany with us. Rather, you're going to tell us about another great Germanic country, the great country of Switzerland. So I am going to turn the reins over to you, and I'm excited for this Swiss adventure with you.
I am so excited to be here with everyone tonight to talk about my trip to Switzerland. Before I dive in, I want to give some sort of a disclaimer here and say that there is value in hearing from experts and there's value in hearing from fellow travelers. And this is the latter. I'm not a Switzerland travel expert, at least not yet, but I hope you find my trip report helpful, informative, and inspiring. I always like to start out with a general overview of the trip that I did, and I did take the Best of Switzerland tour, the Rick Steves 12-day Switzerland tour, and it's designed to visit the top destinations of Switzerland. So we are going to follow this itinerary tonight because I took the tour. But I am a travel advisor here at Rick Steves Europe, and I spend my days helping advise independent travelers. So while we're going to follow this tour itinerary, everything I discuss tonight is with independent travelers in mind. So a general overview of some practicalities before we jump in. I went in the month of September. I thought it was a fabulous time to go. Generally, anytime between May and September is a good time to visit Switzerland. As you can see here, I have the averages in Fahrenheit per month. The months of May, June, and September are probably the most ideal in terms of combining the convenience of peak season with generally good weather and slightly lighter crowds. And summer, while the most crowded, does have the best weather. This map, which you can find in our Switzerland guidebook, is a great starting point for any traveler planning a Switzerland trip. The key destinations are color-coded, with red being a must-see, green a try hard to see, and blue worthwhile if you have the time. In terms of costs, okay, Switzerland is expensive. It's relative to the rest of Europe, it's one of the most expensive. And I am more of a budget traveler as much as I can be. So these are some averages that you're looking at, very generalized averages. You can keep costs lower by staying in hostels. Many hostels do have private rooms and are actually quite nice. It's also easy to find cheaper food in Switzerland. If you're not dining out, you can go to a grocery store or a co-op and pick up fresh, good food for a relatively inexpensive price. And a transit pass is generally recommended and helps cut down on costs. And I will talk more about that later, don't worry. Now, our very first stop is Lucerne. Lucerne, in my opinion, is a very underrated European city. Just look how pretty it is. You've got its namesake lake, a charming old town with these beautiful wooden bridges, and an incredible alpine backdrop to the city. It's also the perfect springboard for mountain excursions. This is Mount Pilatus, which towers over the city at about 7,000 feet, and it's a great day trip from Lucerne. Getting to Lucerne to the top of this mountain and back requires many legs of transportation, and you can buy individual tickets for those, or you can get one of these combo tickets, which is what I did. It covers the whole loop from Lucerne and back on one ticket. The difference between this golden round trip and this silver round trip is simply whether you start with a boat or a train out of Lucerne. And you can buy these online on the official website, which will be linked in the chat. So there's this very cute cogwheel train, which I rode up the mountain. At the top, you've got these panoramic terraces. There are short hikes you can do. And in summer, there's also a luge ride. It's a good idea to pack a picnic and go up there and just enjoy. You can really spend several hours just enjoying. And then I came down by an aerial cableway and a gondola. Such a great kind of contrast with the cogwheel ascent. And it's really kind of a perfect sampler of Swiss transport. But Pilatus is very weather dependent. And here is where I'm going to admit my mistake. I pre-booked this a couple of months in advance, only to find my big day completely filled with fog. So this was my panoramic view. So my advice is wait until you're closer to your travel dates before buying your ticket so that you can check the weather. Give yourself flexibility to pick a clear day if you can. I really wanted to ride the luge ride. It was closed. I was very sad. But I always say, don't give up on the day. If one of your travel plans fizzles, there's always something else around the corner. So that evening, I went to Stadtkeller restaurant, which hosts a nightly Swiss night out folklore dinner show. Now, this is a lively, really fun, and very interactive show. It's dinner and a show, so they serve traditional Swiss dishes, and there will be yodeling, there's dancing, Alphorn playing. This is something that does book up, so I do recommend reserving this in advance. Luckily, this is not weather dependent. And yes, it's a little kitschy, but there are both locals and tourists that come here, and I always enjoy places that attract both of those crowds. Now, fair warning, you will get pulled on stage, and boy, I did not realize how difficult it would be to play the Alphorn.
Oh yeah, there we go. We didn't see your wallet. We got you on the other. You're confident person. They would have picked
It was really, really hard, honestly. So hopefully you can go to this restaurant on your Switzerland trip, and hopefully you're better at playing the Alphorn than I was. All right, next stop, we went to Appenzell. Appenzell is a small, rural Swiss farming town. Such cute architecture, these colorful chalets. Appenzell is really synonymous with all things traditionally Swiss. So dairy farming and cow processions and traditional Swiss music and yodeling, dancing, local costumes, which you can explore at a few different excellent folk museums that they have there, such as this one. It's also nearby to the Ebenalp summit. So the logistics to get here from the town of Appenzell are simple. You can take a short train about 12 minutes south of Appenzell, and then a cable car runs up the mountain about every 15 minutes. Up top, you get these sweeping views, some really nice hiking options. And there is also this famous rustic cliffside guest house here. Now, I didn't overnight here, but it's a fantastic option if you want to soak up that sort of hills are alive atmosphere. And even without staying at the guest house, this is a great half day. You can ride up, hike a little bit, have lunch, linger over the views, and then glide back down in time for dinner. There are 4 languages spoken in Switzerland, as we can see on this map. So even though it's a small country, it's culturally and linguistically relatively diverse. Rick likes to say that you can spend a week in Switzerland and feel almost as if you've traveled from Paris to Munich to Rome without ever crossing a border. And I definitely agree with that. Up until this point on the trip, I had been in the German-speaking part, there in the orange. But then we moved down south to the Italian region. So on we went to Lugano, the largest city in the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland. Here is more of a Mediterranean-like vibe, warmer weather, Italian-influenced cuisine. It's a great place to relax. I took a lovely boat cruise across Lake Lugano and saw sights that truly made me feel like I was on the Italian Riviera. Something that we do on the tour, which is also something that you can organize yourself as an independent traveler, is we take a boat cruise and we go to a grotto to a risotto cooking class. What a cool way to get involved with the Italian influence in this region. Sitting by the lake, just gorgeous. There are a few different grottos you can do this at. There we are, cooking up some good risotto, and take a look at that. Delicious. After being in, cowbell country just the day before, it was such a fascinating change to all of a sudden be among palm trees. This scenic walk here is called the Olive Trail. So you walk lakeside for about an hour through restored olive groves, and I enjoyed that very much. After Lugano, we made a pit stop at Zermatt to see the famous Matterhorn. From the town at the base of where the Matterhorn is located, you take a quick 10-minute sort of shuttle train up to the actual town of Zermatt, which is pictured here. And then you can take a funicular up to see that classic view of the Matterhorn. Now, I really lucked out because we were only here for a couple of hours, and the weather happened to be perfectly clear. And I say that because Zermatt has a reputation for untrustworthy weather. And if you go for just a day or just a stop, there is a very decent chance you will not even be able to see the Matterhorn. It'll just be hidden behind fog. I would say Zermatt is also quite a touristy town. It's known for being very expensive. And it's also not really on the way to anything. It's just sort of hanging out in the southwest corner of Switzerland. So yes, the site is beautiful and iconic, but in my opinion, it's not worth it in bad weather and can be skipped on a Switzerland itinerary to maximize your time in other destinations. So we've come to about the midway point of my Switzerland journey, and I would like to take a brief pause from the itinerary to give a quick travel tip. And that is my ritual of having a mid-trip travel reset day. Gabe, could you go ahead and run that clip now? So if you're traveling for more than 1 week, one of the smartest things I think you can build into your itinerary is a refresh day. So it's not about sightseeing, it's not about rushing around. It's about giving yourself the space to take care of some things in order for you to be able to enjoy the rest of your trip. For me, a reset day means doing my laundry, picking up any toiletries I've run out of, and reorganizing my suitcase. I always use a small packing cube for my underwear to keep it all contained. A I'll also throw away any trash or receipts that I have, take time to make sure my fragile souvenirs are protected, and I'll go through my photos, make sure that all my photos are backed up, and try to delete any bad ones, although I'm pretty bad at actually doing that. I'll also take some time to just do the things that make me feel human again, like trimming my nails, plucking my eyebrows, taking a long shower. I'll also do some stretching, maybe a little bit of yoga, just to get my body feeling good again. If I do something this day, maybe I'll wander through a park, just something relaxing. I will write postcards home. Yes, I still write postcards. I might call home or just get in touch with family and friends by sending them pictures, updating them about the trip. I also like to eat something fresh and healthy just to feel recharged and again, just feel a little bit more like myself, especially if I've been eating a lot of heavier or unhealthier foods. And the key is to try to do this all in one day so that you're not only giving yourself permission to do it at all, but that you're not worrying about it every other day of the trip. You're like, that's going to happen on that set day. Like these type of things, these reset things, you schedule them in essentially. So you're not trying to do them every single day. You will get so much more out of the trip overall. So I think it's worth it. I think it does a lot for your mental and physical health while on the road. And because of that, you actually will have the energy to enjoy and get the most out of the rest of your trip. Thank you so much, Gabe, for running that clip. And for everyone watching, I hope this is something that you might find helpful to incorporate in your future trips.
Thank you so much, Marta, for that tip. I feel like watching that, the idea of having a reset day, it's something that I've incorporated some elements of, but I've never thought about just doing it all in one day. Though I suppose our tours do acknowledge the value of that, because oftentimes we will have on our longer tours a vacation from your vacation day. So it's a good reminder, even as an independent traveler, to do a vacation from your vacation day.
Exactly.
I did that. I traveled to France this summer, and my day in Cassis, I just gave myself one full beach day. Um, but I think that that brings up a valuable point that I want to ask you a couple questions about before we get back on your Best of Switzerland trip, Marta. And it's about how, if you're taking a tour, you kind of have an itinerary planned for you. If you're an independent traveler and you're planning your own itinerary, and especially if you're trying to have a best of experience of a country, sometimes we can tend to over plan our time because we feel like we have to see everything. But I think it's so valuable to allow free time here and there to just be spontaneous and discover things. Did you have any free time while you were in Switzerland, and were there any unexpected things that you were able to discover?
Yes, Gabe. And first of all, I completely agree with that. I don't like to overschedule myself. I like to give room for that spontaneity. For example, in Bern, I just gave myself some time to wander around, and I ran into the Einstein Museum, which I didn't know that that was there. And that ended up being one of my favorite museums I've actually ever visited. I also, in Switzerland, and this has happened to me in other travels too, just I have found really excellent spas without trying to, just because I gave myself some time to relax, and then I'll think, oh, I should go to a spa and I'll go check something out. And there have been times where it's been the best part of my trip. And I like sometimes not researching and not over planning and just seeing what I run into, or just asking the hotel concierge or a local person that I might meet, what's your favorite place to go? What do you like to do?
I love that you make that habit out of occasionally going to spas when you're abroad and weaving in something that you're interested in. I actually thought about, you were just talking about Lugano. When I was on our Switzerland tour a few years ago, we arrived in Lugano and we were doing our orientation walk through the city, and they were putting up all these inflatable archways. And our guide went up to one of the workers and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, is there an event happening here?" And it turns out that there was a 10K race the next day, and I'm a long distance runner. So we had some free time scheduled for the next day. So I just signed up for the race and was able to run it and have this experience where I really felt like, I mean, I was in amongst all the Swiss people and was finding a way to do something that I was very interested in during my travels, and it made me connect with the culture a lot more. So I definitely recommend that people both have some free time, but also think about ways that they can weave in some of their personal interests that may not have as much historical or cultural heft to them, but that can be a good complement to their more studious sightseeing endeavors.
Well said.
All right. Well, I am going to pop back behind the scenes, Marta, and let you continue this journey through Switzerland.
Fantastic. All right, now that we are refreshed and ready to continue on to the second half of our trip, let's head to Lausanne. Oh, Lausanne, what a charming city located in the French-speaking part of Switzerland. I think many people, myself included, are traditionally more aware of the nearby city of Geneva. But I think Lausanne is actually more beautiful with more to do, and it's still on the shores of Lake Geneva, so you still get that experience of being by the lake. Lausanne is also where the International Olympic Committee is based, and the Olympic Museum here is absolutely fantastic. I loved it. I'm a big fan of the Olympics, but even if you're just a casual fan or mildly interested, which, I mean, who isn't, this museum is well worth your time. It's very interactive as well. The final part covers this area where visitors are basically you can test your balance and agility and mental skills with these different interactive exercises, sort of to kind of compare yourself to an Olympic athlete in some sense. But it's a great museum. I could do a whole presentation on just this museum probably. And crepes, oh my gosh, crepes galore because of course you're in the French region. We also did a wine tasting at this lakeside family-run winery, and we had a chance to walk their vineyards and do a grape tasting as well over this beautiful view of Lake Geneva. One of my wow moments on this trip was the Swiss chocolate experience at the Camille Bloch Chocolate Factory in Courtlery, which we stopped at en route to our next tour stop, but it can also be reached via Switzerland's excellent train system. So Camille Bloch is a family-owned Swiss chocolate company founded in 1929, and it's now one of the major chocolate makers in Switzerland, thanks to its flagship products, Ragusa and Torino. This is quite an engaging museum where we learned about the company's history and branding throughout the decades, including watching old commercials. We got to see the Swiss chocolatiers make the chocolate. There are real chocolate fountains in the museum, which you can drink from. And there are samples, I mean, honestly, endless samples in this museum. And then we got to make our own. We took this Swiss chocolate making class where we made a giant version of the Torino bar, which is their classic praline-filled Swiss chocolate bar. This is what we end up with, and a Swiss banknote for scale, so you can see just how big this chocolate bar is. Up next, we went to the, in my opinion, #1 must-see area of Switzerland, the Berner Oberland, where we stayed in the town of Mürren. But first, there is so much transportation in Switzerland, particularly in the region we're about to go to, and it can get very confusing. So I do want to take a moment to do a little Swiss Rail Pass 101 segment. And this is a topic we get asked a lot about here at the Travel Center. We could probably do an entire show just on Swiss transit passes. So this is just a brief, very general overview, but keep in mind that links with more information are being posted in the chat widget. So why choose or choose a rail pass? Well, many European countries do have their own country-specific rail passes, and they aren't always a good monetary value. However, for Switzerland, they generally are. The two most popular options, you might have heard of them if you're doing some research on your Switzerland trip, are the Swiss half fare card and the Swiss travel pass. The basics are that the Swiss half fare card gives you 50% off all Swiss transport across the board. It's valid for 1 month, and it costs a flat fee of 120 Swiss francs, or around 150 US dollars by the current conversion rate. This is cheaper up front, but this is not a hop-on, hop-off pass. This is just a card that gives you 50% off all the transit tickets. So you still have to buy each individual ticket. You just indicate that you're a card holder and you'll get half off. Versus the Swiss Travel Pass. Now, the Swiss Travel Pass covers nearly all transport in Switzerland. Trains, buses, boats, the scenic panorama trains. Now, it doesn't cover a lot of the mountain lifts, but it usually does give you a 50% off discount on them. It also covers most museums. This pass comes in a continuous or a flexi option. You can get it for 3, 4, 6, 8, or 15 days. This one is more expensive up front, but once you have the pass, you simply board the trains or the transport without needing to buy an individual ticket, again, most of the time. So it gives you that hop-on convenience. So you literally just hop on the train. You don't have to do anything. You just walk onto the train. And then when the conductor comes around asking to see people's tickets, you'll just show them your Swiss Travel Pass on your phone, and it has a QR code on it, and they scan it, and then you're good. And finally, there is the Berner Oberland Pass. And I mentioned this one because we get a lot of questions about this one too, because a lot of people's Switzerland trips are mainly focused on this area if they're, not going to be there if they're not doing like a full Switzerland cross-country trip. This does cover the connections between Bern, Interlaken, and Lucerne. Within the Berner Oberland, it's basically like the Swiss Travel Pass. It covers a lot of the transit, trains, bus, boat, but it doesn't cover all of the mountain lifts. Again, like the Travel Pass, it gives you a discount to them usually. Newly, this pass does fully cover the Schilthorn, which is quite expensive to do, and I really recommend doing it. I'll talk about that later. This pass is sold as a consecutive pass in either 3, 4, 6, 8, or 10 days. Cost-wise, it is a little bit less expensive than the Swiss Travel Pass, and this one is seasonal, available from late April to late October. Okay, so that was a lot of information, and everyone is probably very confused, but how do you choose when presented with all of that information? So it does come down to doing the math, adding up roughly the costs of your transport point-to-point tickets if you bought them separately versus the cost of a pass, and then comparing to see what's the best value. SBB is the Swiss National Railways. They have a website and an app. You can look up all tickets of transportation types on here and to get an idea of the prices. But we also have this really helpful map. This is on our website on a page that will also be linked in the chat widget. This shows point A to B routes with approximate cost in US dollars for a second class ticket. So I like to use this map. It's a really handy resource. And then for all of those mountain lifts, which this is just giving you some of the popular ones. This is from our Switzerland guidebook to sort of give you an idea. Because again, these passes generally are not fully covering the mountain lifts. So that's an additional cost to factor in. And then once you have that, you'll compare that cost to the cost of a pass. So here we have costs of Swiss Travel Pass. Again, remember they come in continuous and flexi options. So the 3-day continuous pass, you start it and then you have it for the next 3 continuous days, versus the Flexi Pass is however many days within one given month. So any day that you use it in that month, it's considered one of the days. And you can do that, say, 3 different times in the month. And then at the bottom, again, we have the Swiss half fare card. Remember, that one is just the flat fee. It's 1 month. Very straightforward. Then we have the price of the Berner Oberland passes. Again, all of this is going to be linked in the chat. So we help a lot of travelers crunch that math at our travel center. And without getting into too much specifics, I want to just give you some generalizations of what, generally speaking, works best for what types of trips. So I would say that almost everyone finds that the Swiss half fare card is a good value for their trip, whether they're going to Switzerland for a few days or for a 2 or 3 weeks. It's those longer trips, though, that it usually ends up being that the Swiss travel pass becomes the best deal. Either it's around the same price as a half fare card, or it could be a little bit more, or it could be a little bit less, but it's kind of comparable. And then what people go for at that point is the convenience that it offers, because that's a value in and of itself. It is annoying to have to buy each individual ticket, especially if you're doing a huge cross-country road trip and you're going to be there for a couple of weeks. I would definitely go for the Swiss travel pass in that case. The Berner Oberland pass might be the right choice if your trip is mostly focused on that region. But remember that it covers little more than the Swiss travel pass, but costs almost as much. So I would really crunch the math on that one. And don't jump to the conclusion that it's the best for your trip just because that's where you're spending most of your time. Because another thing to consider is the train. If you're flying into Zurich, which a lot of people do because it's the biggest hub, you also need to account for the train ride from Zurich to getting to Interlaken and exploring the Berner Oberland region. And trains in Switzerland are very expensive. A lot of people ask also, what's the difference between first and second class on Swiss trains? Is it like airplanes where first class is so much better than economy? The answer is really no. This is a typical first class Swiss train. And here's a typical second class one. I think second class is still very roomy and comfortable. I always take the second class. It's not a drastic difference. All right. Now that we have our transit pass in hand, let's go explore this phenomenal region. So one thing I want to say first is that the Berner Oberland region is basically, it's many little towns and villages situated among the Swiss Alps, and they're connected by various forms of transport, as you can see on this map. The activities that you do here are basically kind of soaking up and enjoying all of this natural beauty by, hiking, walking, biking, exploring the towns. I stayed in Mürren, which you can see is highlighted there. I think that's a really wonderful home base to stay. With my second choice being Lauterbrunnen, which I have also stayed at, and it's a little bit bigger, it's a little bit lower down. I kind of prefer Mürren because I think it's like kind of smaller and cuter. But both I think are excellent home bases to stay if you're going to go to this region. I wouldn't worry about hopping around and staying at different places because they're all accessible. So I would just have one home base and just explore every day and check out the other villages and different hikes and mountain lifts. There's me in Mürren. Probably my biggest wow moment was riding the gondola up to the 10,000-foot high Schilthorn and having breakfast at the rotating panoramic restaurant with these just incredible views of the Eiger, Munk, and Jungfrau peaks. We had an early start, but we had a crystal clear morning and it really made it worthwhile. This is something, again, don't book it in advance. You can just buy a ticket there. You're going to want the clear weather for it. After we stepped outside onto the viewing platform, at this altitude, it's cold year round, so bring gloves and warm clothes even in the summer. Also regarding altitude, sometimes people ask about altitude sickness. The only place in this general region where you maybe would have some slight symptoms is the Jungfrau, which is the highest peak in this entire region. Everything else is just too low to have altitude sickness, generally speaking. I can't believe I took this picture. The Schilthorn has just jaw-dropping panoramas. So for me, this is really a must-do. I really can't believe I saw this in person. I didn't go to the Jungfrau Peak, which is the highest, as I said, and it is more expensive. I didn't feel that I needed to. I thought this was unbelievably perfect. And I just think the restaurant experience that's rotating around just makes it fantastic. And with this, on the way down, they have this thrill walk, which comes with a part of getting your ticket to go up. So you can stop midway down and you can do this thrill walk if you're up for it. I think it's really fun. Back at lower heights, I fell in love with tiny Gimmelwald, which is a village with a population of just 100 people. Talking with other travelers, I remember one guy said about Gimmelwald, he said, it's like a real town. And he's right. It doesn't feel touristy. It's still very much a farm village. As you wander, you'll see this cheese storing hut. Those rocks on the roof are not decorative. They actually keep the shingles from blowing off in storms. And I stopped for lunch at the Pension Gimmelwald, which is an old farmhouse converted into an inn with a cozy restaurant and a bar and a terrace with gorgeous valley views. I also love the Honesty Shop here. It's a self-service store, so there are no employees. You just take what you like and leave cash or Venmo payment in return. I got some really cute postcards here. And actually all around Berner Oberland, you'll spot little self-service fridges with local cheese and dairy products made from the farmers there. You just, again, take what you want and leave the payment, just like the Honesty Shop. Before the tour started, I spent extra time in this area. This is when I stayed in Lauterbrunnen. I don't consider myself a hardcore hiker. I'm more of a walker. And I just really wanted to explore the nature, and I found it perfect. Rick's Switzerland guidebook helped me choose easy and more moderate trails. And the thing with the hikes here is they usually involve some form of transport, whether it's a mountain lift or a train. And this is all outlined in the guidebook. And speaking of the book, I'm not always one to carry around physical pages of a guidebook with me while traveling, but on my hiking day, I found it very helpful. And here's a quick tip about what I did to carry those around with me.
And my name is Marta, and I'm a travel advisor at Rick Steves Europe. Today I'm in Mürren, Switzerland, on the free day of my Rick Steves Best of Switzerland tour. Now, this region, the Berner Oberland, is a picturesque patchwork of mountains, valleys, and charming villages. It's absolutely breathtaking, but navigating it can sometimes be a bit tricky. A guidebook can be incredibly helpful, but carrying around a guidebook while you're hiking isn't always practical. This is where the guidebook page binder comes to the rescue. I've extracted just the essential pages for today's adventure, including maps, routes, and key information, and I've clipped them into this handy binder. This way I have all the info I need without the bulk of a full guidebook. So whether you're trekking through the Swiss Alps or on any other adventure, this tip keeps your travels light and organized. Happy travels!
That guidebook page binder is really my favorite product that we sell, I think, and it's only $1. Now, the Lauterbrunnen Valley walk is probably the easiest one you can do. It's more of a stroll than a hike, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's about 3 miles. It's mostly level, with lots of opportunities to see waterfalls and cows and waterfalls with cows. I also joined Rick Steves' guide and my wonderful friend Stephanie on this walk from Mürren to Gürtschalp, which is, again, easy, slightly downhill, gorgeous walk. There were cows everywhere. We also hiked the popular Männlichen to Kleine Scheidegg trail, another fairly easy option with just knockout views there at the end of the hike. For more of a challenge, I tried the Panorama Loop Trail. It's again about 3 miles. This one's a little bit more moderate, but the ridge views and the alpine lake views were terrific. For all of these hikes, by the way, I wore waterproof hiking shoes. I wore melds. Those are my preferred ones. They worked really well for me. I didn't wear like serious hiking boots. I thought that just the shoes were good. But again, I stuck with hikes that were a little bit on the easier side. Switzerland makes hiking very easy as well. The trails are well marked with these yellow signs showing time estimates to your destination, as well as these symbols which let you know that you're still on the right trail. But I do recommend to check weather conditions. Higher trails can close due to snow or fog, even in the summer. So before taking this funicular up to do the North Face Trail, I checked with the tourist office and asked about conditions because I had heard the weather was kind of iffy. They are so knowledgeable about the current conditions. They told me that the fog was coming in and that the trail was still open, but that I should turn back around if it started to get worse. So I was enjoying this very much, but I did have to turn back around as fog rolled in and some snow began to fall. But even so, it was a great experience. And on a day like that, there was really nothing better than enjoying fondue for dinner that evening, so that's exactly what I did. And that's all for my time in this region, though the Swiss Alps are forever in my heart. Finally, we're at the end of our tour, and we ended in Bern, which I think is such a lovely, livable city. It's pretty compact, so it's very walkable, has a fantastic old town. Here I fell in love with raclette, which is a classic Swiss dish where cheese is melted and then scraped over boiled potatoes. This is more of a street food version that I had, as it's served on bread. It's very hearty, very comforting, and quintessentially Swiss. This restaurant is listed in our guidebook, and I did go there multiple times because I loved everything they served. From the Rosengarten viewpoint of Bern, you get this just stunning panorama of the rooftops and the river winding below. And hey, Gabe, speaking of Bern, I heard you have some memories there as well.
Thank you, Marta, for that sensational tour and sweep through Switzerland. I loved when you said, I can't believe I took this photo myself. And it was an amazing photo. It's amazing how when you get up in the Alps, the mountains just do half the work of the photography for you.
They really do. People were like, "You're such a good photographer." And I said, "No, I just had a great subject."
Yep. I mean, you kind of have to try hard to take a bad photo in the Alps, I suppose.
Exactly.
Well, as you said, yes, I am a big fan of the city of Bern. It is my favorite place in Switzerland. I was on the Best of Switzerland tour, like you, a few years ago. And at the time, we only spent one night in the city of Bern. And I loved the tour, but if I had one piece of feedback, it was that we needed more than one night in the city of Bern. So I'm so glad to see that in the itinerary now, there are 2 nights, very well deserved. But I also had the privilege of going back to Bern just a couple years ago, and I'm going to share some glimpses from that to round out this tour of Switzerland. So I went for an event called the Euro Games, which is an LGBTQ sporting event. So it was fun to see the very kind of traditional, stately, arcaded boulevards of the city in vibrant colors of the various pride flags. My friends and I got to compete in some athletic events, and we marched in only their third ever Pride Parade, which was very special, and again went down those arcaded boulevards. But in addition to those festivities, I also had time to experience some of the more everyday sights and experiences of summer in the city. I was there in July of 2023, and this just gives you a sense of one incredible aspect of the city. You get to see this gorgeous cityscape with a nice stone spire on a cathedral with the backdrop of those snow-capped mountains. It really was exceptional. And like you, Marta, my friends and I took some time to go up to the Rosengarten viewpoint, where there was a very youthful crowd enjoying the bend in the river. But my favorite experience in the city of Bern was actually in that river down below. That is the Aare River, and it is a common pastime of the Bernese people to go for a float down the river. And so I would like to share that experience with a little video clip now. So here is my experience floating down Bern's Aare River.
Hello, fellow travelers. I am here at the Aare River in Bern. It begins at the Unteraar Glacier in the Swiss Alps, which gives it this nice light blue color, and it flows all the way to the Rhine. In between, though, it's a favorite pastime of the Bern people who love to hop in on a warm summer day like today and simply float all the way to downtown Bern. Today it's about 19 degrees Celsius, so a little chilly, but not terrible. It'll feel refreshing. And I should say this is only for advanced swimmers. The current is strong and you do need to swim your way to the edge to get yourself out at the end. So only for strong, competent swimmers, which we are. So we're gonna go have some fun in the Aare now.
Tenderly, we tiptoe into the glacial flow, which never gets above 65 degrees, working up our nerve. Until, at long last, we take the plunge and the crisp blue Aare envelops us. And just like that, we're doing the Bern float. Our phones, clothes, and towels are stowed in our floating dry bags, which we tow behind us as we charge down the river. They also serve as comfy pillows if you need to take a little break. Above us, local thrill seekers leap from bridges, and below us, the steady Aare churns and surges, carrying us into the heart of the city. The float lasts a brisk but beautiful 12 minutes, until we swim to the river's edge and find the exit canal, angling us directly toward the Swiss Parliament building. Climbing out from the Aare, we emerge into the sprawling Marzilibad pool complex, which has offered a place for Bern locals to luxuriate since the 1780s. Today, it offers free summer fun for people of all ages and levels of coordination. The complex feels like Bern's living room during the day and becomes the city's open-air movie theater on balmy summer nights. What goes downstream must come back up, and soon we begin our 20-minute walk along the well-maintained path upstream. As we walk, we pass chic riverside cafes serving refreshing drinks out of old shipping containers, and more Bernese, celebrating summer with a wonderful wet paseo. Oh, I just want to be back in that river, Marta. It's so beautiful. It is so refreshing, and it just is such a unique travel experience that is unlike anything I've ever seen. In fact, I've heard that there are even some people that will take the bus into work. If they work downstream, they'll take the bus into work, and then after work, they'll walk down to the river, put their work clothes in their dry bag, and they'll float home.
That is one heck of a commute. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I know. So I have just a final few glimpses here of Bern. So I want to say once more, as we do sometimes with our tours, Marta, where we try to prepare people for the activity level, I don't mean to say that you have to be an Olympic level swimmer to do this. But of course, we always want to err on the side of caution. You should be able to swim laps in a pool for maybe not fast, but for a while in order to do this. But the city of Bern also started this campaign called Are You Safe, which is meant to educate people on whether floating the river is within their ability levels and how to do so safely. So you can Google Are You Safe if you want to learn more. I'm going to finish with a couple other glimpses of the great city of Bern. One is the Gurten, which is the little mountain. It's like the local mountain of the city that's just on the southern edge. And my two friends and I, when we were there, we decided to bike up to the top of the Gurten one day, which started out great and very quickly became less biking and more walking with our bike. This is us charging up through the fields. But we did eventually make it to the peak where, lo and behold, there were more stairs for us to climb. But we dutifully scaled the way all the way to the top of the tower and enjoyed these beautiful views over the city. So if you are an active traveler and you want to get a little workout in, you can rent a bike or put on your hiking shoes and go all the way up to the Gurten and enjoy the view of the Aare and the city of Bern. You can see that great view of the Swiss Parliament building. And you can actually also even see the baths, the Marzilibad baths down below. Finally, certainly you want to spend some time walking around the beautiful streets. This is a place where Rick's self-guided walking tour in the guidebook is a must, in my opinion. The history of this city really is fascinating, and I love being able to follow it at my own pace using the guidebook. And I'm going to share one little nugget that I thought was fascinating as I was reading through the guidebook with you.
Today, the arcaded streets of historic Bern are lined with trendy shops, but don't forget to also check out the cellars. Back in the Middle Ages, the water was contaminated, and to make it more potable, the people of Bern would mix it with wine or just drink wine altogether. The wine was shipped in from Lausanne and Geneva and stored down in these cellars, and at one point, so much wine was stored under the city of Bern that people said that it floated on wine just as Venice floated on water. Today, the wine is gone, and these cellars are now filled with shops in their own right. So when you are strolling through the streets of historic Bern, don't just look on street level, but also think of going beneath the city to see what experiences and shops lie below.
All right, well, on the topic of food and drink, I am going to finish my very last photo for Bern. Is going to be a shout out for a great restaurant there. Those of you who have watched Monday Night Travel for a while know that I am a vegetarian, and I often get asked what I eat, especially in the Germanic world. First of all, I love cheese and bread, and I could survive on cheese fondue or great picnic items. But especially in the cities of Switzerland, I've been really pleasantly surprised. In Zurich, there's a restaurant called Hiltel that claims to be the oldest or the longest running vegetarian restaurant in the world. And in Bern, there's a great restaurant called Tibbet's, which is all vegan and vegetarian food. It is dangerous though, because it's very tasty and it is just by the weight of the plate. So it's a buffet of great vegetarian fare. You pile it on and then you weigh the plate. So it can get a bit pricey because you're also paying Switzerland prices, but it is certainly worth it. And I highly recommend the berry tiramisu. All right, Marta. That was my final note on Bern. And before we get to our Q&A session in just a moment, we have our quick word from our sponsor. I want to remind people that we just recently released the most current edition of our Switzerland guidebook. The 12th edition came out either in late July or early August. So it is up to date. And if you want to pick one up, starting today, we have a special little promo. Marta, can you tell us about our free shipping offer?
Yes, absolutely, Gabe. We have free shipping on orders $20 and over from today until September 28th. So it's a week-long promo. We basically never do this except during the holiday sale. So even I'm surprised that we're doing this. It is for USA standard shipping orders only. There's no promo code needed. You could just put anything in your cart. If it's over $20, the shipping will be free.
All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Marta. I know one of your other hats, in addition to travel advisor and Swiss traveler, is you work a lot with our merchandise. So
Yes, I do.
thank you for that. And at this point, we are going to pivot to our Q&A session. And as Marta said earlier, we do many Monday Night Travel shows where we have location-based experts that were born and raised in that region and have guided there for 20 years. Marta and I are not that. We are fellow travelers just like you, and we have both done quite a bit of travel in Switzerland. So we are going to tag team this Q&A and answer some of your questions now. And Marta, I think that the first one is going to be perfect for you. Sherry was wondering, how do you pack for a good trip to Switzerland? We had some travelers that were noting that there was an image with palm trees down in Lugano, and then you had these snowy mountaintop peaks. How do you pack for nice beach weather and weather where you're going to be up high in the Alps?
That's an excellent question, and the answer is layers and plan to do laundry. So I always make sure to bring a few different layers. So I'll bring, tank tops, and I'll bring maybe like one pair of shorts, but a lot of more like capris and pants. But then the layering can come with like a light layer that I could put on top, and then a warm, like fuzzy, more insulated layer. And then I always bring my rain shell jacket as well. And that allows you to peel off layers if needed or add them if needed. And between that and just following Lisa Friend's Monday Night Travel video that she did on how she packs, I that is my religion now, that video. So I highly recommend checking that out. I follow, and yes, thank you, Emily, for putting that in the chat widget. That packing video is fantastic. But yes, layers, and know that you can do laundry, so you don't have to pack for every single day you're there. If you're there for 2 weeks, you could just pack for 7 or 8 days and do laundry at the midway point.
We are all apostles of the packing guru Lisa Friend at this point, and she talks specifically about the 3 L's: lists, laundry, and layers.
Yep.
So yes, that packing video is in the chat widget and well worth it. One of my packing crowning achievements was when I did that trip to Switzerland. It was also the same trip where I went to the Faroe Islands. And so I had to pack for 40 degrees and rainy. I had to pack for 80 degrees and sunny. I had to pack for a formal dinner and an athletic competition. And I'm a tall person. My clothes take up some room. So it is possible to fit everything that you need in a carry-on if you follow the 3 L's. Thank you, Marta. Our second question, so we're all packed for the trip. Our second question comes from David. When we arrive in Switzerland, of course, there's various places you could arrive, but it's often common to arrive in Zurich because it is the largest city. I actually don't know if you spent any time in Zurich. So I can speak to this question, I know, but David is wondering, is it worth spending time in Zurich? Did you spend any time in Zurich, Marta?
So I arrived at the Zurich airport, and I did take a train into the city of Zurich to walk around for a little bit just to see it. But I only spent about an hour doing that, because then I took the direct train to Lucerne, where the tour started. I think Zurich is a lovely city. I think for me, I would only add that to my itinerary if I was maybe on a longer journey through Switzerland, because if it's a first-time trip through Switzerland, I would not put that at the top of the destinations to see, to be honest. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a great city. There's a lot of things to do. But there are other places that I would go see first if you haven't been to Switzerland yet.
I would agree with that. I think it's a great place to fly into and spend a night, maybe 2. I think I spent 2 when I flew in, and it's a very sleek city. It's great to just get everything that you need. If you realize that you forgot to pack something, you can grab it in Zurich before you go up into the mountains. I think it does have the National History Museum of Switzerland. So if you are a very academic sightseer and you want kind of a primer of everything else that you're about to see, going to that National History Museum, I think, is a great option. And it's just, when you're there, it's I was like, I want to live in Zurich. It feels like a very livable city. It just doesn't have any cultural aspect that feels dialed up to 11 in the way that a lot of other locations that you've covered have. I think Rick also said there's a joke. I might get this not quite right, but there's a joke in Switzerland that says like Zurich, Zurich, which something is like Zurich, too rich and too sleepy, or something like that. But I really enjoyed my time there. Next question comes from Kathy. Kathy's wondering, how did you handle money while you were there? Because of course they use the franc rather than the euro, but Switzerland's also very cutting edge. Did you use cash at all?
I did not use any cash myself. I didn't even take out cash at the ATM. I use my card for everything. Um, but it might be a good idea to have some cash because those little fridges that I talked about that have the cheese in them, or there are multiple places in the Berner Oberland that have just product for sale of some sort that you just leave money. And a lot of times they have a Venmo, and that's what I did, but not all of them had a Venmo. So I would take out a little bit of cash if I were to advise somebody. And what I would do is, as we always say, wait until you get to the country of Switzerland. You can do this at the airport. You can do this in any city and just take your debit card, go to an ATM and pull out some Swiss francs. You're going to get the best conversion rate that way. But generally speaking, I was able to use card virtually everywhere.
Another question is, Michelle is wondering, could you get by with English everywhere that you went?
Yes, probably more than any other non-English speaking European country. English is very widely spoken. Switzerland, as a country, has long been a force of nature in the tourism industry. So I felt like I could speak English pretty much anywhere and people could understand what I was saying. I would say it's more, yeah, super easy to get by with English, and Google Translate is always there if you need it.
And I know that, of course, we always advise people, it can just be a nice sign of cultural deference and respect to learn your few pleasantries, hello, goodbye, please, thank you, in the local language. Of course, that's a taller order when there's 3 or 4 languages you might have to learn. I do know back in June when we did a Monday night travel show on Beyond the Best of Switzerland, our colleague Robin did advise best thing is to, if you can use the local language for those little phrases, it's always a nice gesture. But if you don't know, it's better to use English than to use one of the languages from elsewhere in Switzerland. If you're in the German region, it's better to use English than to try to use French with them. So I think you get some regional pride amongst them.
Absolutely. And I actually relish when I'm traveling and I meet somebody who doesn't speak any English and I don't speak their language and we have to try to find a way to communicate. I think that's some of my favorite travel memories is using hand gestures or writing things on a piece of paper and trying to find some middle ground together. So I think that's personally really fun.
Marta, our last question for the evening is, somebody was saying that they've been to the Berner Oberland, but wondering what would be, for so many people, that's the number one, but what would be your runner-up, they were asking. So either I'd like to know which of the sites that maybe, isn't the Berner Oberland, which site most captured your heart, and or where would you like to go next in Switzerland?
I would say Bern. And Gabe, as you said, we do now spend a couple of nights in Bern on the tour. And the one thing about Bern is it can be quite rainy. And unfortunately for me, it was pretty rainy when I was there. I would have loved to do the river float like you did, Gabe, but it wasn't an option. And just explore more of the city. So that would be my answer.
Excellent. Well, just let me know when you're going, Marta, and
Fantastic.
We can go together.
Yeah.
I also want to remind people, this was in the links that were posted in the chat widget, but we did just a few months ago also do a show on Beyond the Best of Switzerland. So tonight's show was more focused on those sites and destinations that we recommend for first-time travelers to Switzerland. We recognize that some people like to return to countries and see more off the beaten path destinations. And so Emily just reposted that in the chat widget. You can enjoy our show on Beyond the Best of Switzerland. I was particularly sold on the Valley Lavazza that my colleague Robin talked about. So that would probably be my next destination. But Marta, we thank you so much for taking the time to share your Swiss insights with us tonight, for your insightful presentation, and for your valiant attempt to describe the Swiss rail passes. So thank you for your efforts.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And thank you to all of you viewers for joining us. We so appreciate you making us part of your Monday nights. And I'd like to remind you that next week, Monday, we are going to go to Liverpool with local guide Jackie Spencer, who's going to tell us both about great Liverpool sites, but also give us a good dose of some Beatles history for those music fans of you out there. So we look forward to seeing you next week.